friends, and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. And today I am so happy to have our friend from Pink Shade, Mary Payne Gilbert, back. Hi, Mary Payne. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun. We've got a lot of shit to talk about.
We do. And it's funny because I was just on your podcast.
Yes.
And we also had a lot of shit to talk about, but there has been so much more that has happened.
In like a day and a half. Yeah.
Yes. So let's get into it. First, we're going to start by talking a little bit about Jill Zarin and Taylor Armstrong, woof, being canceled due to their racist rants about Bad Bunny, which, Mary Payne, can I tell you something? On my Instagram, my following is growing, and while I'm grateful for that, it's a mixed bag. When I've posted, we don't really necessarily talk politics here, but like therapy is political, right? Being a therapist, I'd be the worst therapist in the world if I advocated against marginalized communities and things like that. That's just not how, therapists need to be aware of the community at large and the culture and what's going on. When I posted about this, things in the past, when I posted about ICE or whatever it was, didn't lose any followers, had no issues. But when I posted about Jill Zarin and Bad Bunny, people came for my ass so hard, and I thought, what is happening here? Yeah. What's happening here, Mary Payne? I don't know.
I didn't know Jill had that many fans. I mean, or Bad Bunny had so many haters. Like, people like racism. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what that would be about. That's weird to me.
People who feel the same way as Jill, and there's a lot of them, which, there's a lot of people who are racist. Unfortunately, that's how it is. I think sometimes people they don't like feeling like their behaviors are called out. That would be my best guess. But so essentially what happened is Jill Zarin went on this rant about, we're celebrating 250 years of America, and she didn't think it was appropriate for the show to be in Spanish. There was not one white person there. I mean, she just made so many ridiculous comments. And Taylor Armstrong also kind of mimicked her thoughts, but she didn't do a video. It was just a post. Now, since that time, Jill has been fired, and I've never seen Bravo fans unite over an issue like this in my life.
Bravo fans were like, we weren't looking for Jill anyway. So that's great.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And so people are going so hard against Jill and Taylor. But what's funny is yesterday, Taylor came out with this. Jill came out with a faux apology, which was saying, I'm human. And again, being human doesn't excuse racism. Hate isn't an opinion. That's a problem. Yeah. So Jill got canceled, and then Taylor now is coming out with some sort of faux apology that, to be honest, I didn't even read it because I just have no time or tolerance for this.
Yeah, I think she quickly realized, like, ooh, the double down didn't work for Jill. And I would like to be on The Villains or some such show at some point. So maybe I should pretend I didn't put up a post of me as Russell Crowe in Gladiator. Are you not entertained? And talking about a slap in the face to America and the Cuban flag. It's interesting that she honed in on the Cuban flag when there's 30 flags up there, and it was just Bad Bunny, saying these are the Americas.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying. And
he featured every flag.
She's got a problem with Cuba. That's what she says. So Taylor Armstrong's beef is with Cuba. We don't know why.
Cuba or brown people. I'm just, the whole thing is just very telling. And personally, I am thrilled that people are being held accountable because, we live in a world where a lot of people are doing stuff that they're not being held accountable for. So I don't know. I feel like I'll take it where I can get it. But everyone is thrilled that Jill's out. Everyone is so happy.
They are. And they're like, okay, next is Ramona. And, until Ramona says something recent, I guess she's still in. But there was something that I read, and guys, again, it's like saw it on TikTok, saw it somewhere, don't know. But it was like before the Super Bowl, Ramona called a reporter to complain about, Bad Bunny being on the Super Bowl and sounded pretty racist. Now, the reporter either just went on their Instagram and said this or they didn't have it recorded. So until Ramona is fully caught on tape, she's still with us.
And it's so funny you say that because it's like she's been caught on tape saying so many racist things. Like, just watch the last season of RHOBH before it got canceled. She made such insane anti-Semitic remarks. I mean, Ramona exclusively speaks in ignorant shit, if I'm being honest, exclusively. So I'm confused about that. But something that we have to mention, because I texted you this, is that when I was on your show, before this was announced, you tell the people what your prediction was about Jill being fired.
So Jill got fired, and I said, they're not going to cancel the whole show. Even though this show was completely Jill's idea. I mean, it's crazy that Jill got this whole show going and then got herself fired. Again, just typical Jill. But what I said was, well, they'll have to bring in another OG, so I'm sure they'll bring in Dorinda. And then they announced they were bringing in Dorinda. I have no inside knowledge. It was just my prediction.
It's so funny. I texted you and I was like, Mary Payne, you're an oracle. You are an oracle. She is a soothsayer. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't wait to tell you this.
I couldn't believe it either. But I kind of feel like maybe it's just from so many years of watching Bravo. I'm like, oh, this will be the next move. Now, it is funny. I did listen to Andy's show with my friend John Hill is on there.
Yeah.
And he, of course, actually, John made a really good point, and I texted him this when they were talking about it. I was like, he said, let's don't kick somebody when they're down. She did the thing. She got fired. We don't need to talk about how awful she is. And Andy's like, I agree. He's like, but, it's not your problem. Andy goes, every time somebody asks me, I just say, call E. Call E. Because he doesn't have to deal with her anymore. Now, I did see another funny thing yesterday. It was a therapist that was on Instagram that probably popped up because I've said the word therapist a lot lately. So I'm talking to you. So Instagram showed me what I needed. It was a therapist, and she was commenting on Kelly Dodd made a video where she's blow drying her hair, and she's like, you guys. So Jill called me, and what I told her, and this person's like, first of all, I'm waiting for Kelly Dodd to make a full sentence that makes sense. And second of all, that's who you called? You called Kelly Dodd? Like, this is all we need to know? And I wrote under that, never forget, Kelly Dodd told us at that reunion, I can't be racist, I'm Black.
Oh my God.
Do you remember when she said, I'm Black?
Of course I do. And she's not Black.
She has Spanish heritage.
And while I definitely appreciate what John Hill said because, he's right. Listen, Jill has fumbled the bag harder than any other Bravo love we've ever seen. But the one thing that I was referencing is that Reza Farahan was on, I thought it was with John Hill, but no, it must have been something else. He said that Jill was the reason that the first RHOBH, they were trying to get that going on Bravo. And she wanted to have equal pay with Luann de Lesseps. And they said, no, we're not doing that. She's been on all this time. And then Jill was the reason that it all fell apart.
Yes.
But what Reza said that was really shocking to me is that Jill was happy about that. She was bragging about that she tanked the show because she didn't get what she wanted. And I just think that while it's a lovely idea to not kick someone when they're down, it's just also time for Jill to experience some of those consequences because that's just the narcissism in that. It's like, you're going to hurt other people's chances to be on TV just because that's not what worked for you. You know what I mean? I just think that's really crappy.
Yeah. And it's, again, like we talked about on my show, it is the thought that everybody needs to know exactly what you think all the time. And this is not just Jill. This is just across everything, that you get to a point of celebrity where you think, you know what? I'm going to comment on my dryer keeps stopping. I think I'm going to do a whole video about it. People will be interested. They're not. And people aren't interested in your thoughts on the Super Bowl. No one's interested in my thoughts on the Super Bowl or yours. Like let's talk to football players. They're probably interested, or people that are into music. They could be interested, but every thought doesn't need to come out of our mouth hole. Do you know what I mean? And Jill did a FAFO, Yeah.
Right. And to kind of wrap this up is Robin Dixon and Giselle, they have their Reasonably Shady podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing Robin really went off about, which I completely agree with, is that Jill just felt too comfortable saying this, which tells you that she's surrounded by an echo chamber of people who are saying and believing the same thing. She's clearly running in circles where this is the rhetoric. And so she thinks she's right, or her opinions are the only ones that matter. I appreciate the advocacy for different cultures, and, appreciating different cultures doesn't mean we have to pick or choose. We can love who we are and love America and appreciate all the cultures that make America beautiful.
It's called a melting pot. We're called a melting pot. So
That's
it's
right.
let me ask you this, parsing apart what Jill said specifically. Do you think if she would not have said white people, she said, I didn't see any white people. If she would have said everything else, like it's the 250th anniversary and I didn't understand the music is in Spanish. I couldn't understand one word. Me either, because I don't speak Spanish. If she wouldn't have used the phrase white people, would they have been able to forgive her? I think the saying the quiet part out loud, I didn't see any white people, is what really sunk that ship. The rest of it was bad too, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying her saying the term white people is probably what made them go, okay, we're out.
Yeah, that's a funny point, and I definitely think it was certainly the cherry on top of the sundae that Todd would have taken from Bronwyn. I think it was that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
nailed it.
That's kind of my opinion on that. And here's the thing: I don't speak Spanish either, but for me, I just find a lot of joy in the music, the beat, the rhythm, all of that. And one of the things that I compare this to is when people see the opera, it's people singing in Italian. Well, many people don't speak Italian either, but they still enjoy the opera. So it's just it's just a different cultural perspective that.
Good point. That's a great point.
Yeah. So, but what's done is done. I'm always grateful when people let me know, they give me a peek behind the curtain, because then we can just make our choice to engage or to not engage. So yeah, I think we just have to let the mouse go. As Sutton would say, we have to move forward, but it's good to know now who to support and who not to support.
I've never understood the phrase, let the mouse go. I understand what it means. Let it go. I get it. Mm-hmm. But why the mouse?
That's a great question. We'd have to ask Miss Sutton Strack.
We would.
I don't know.
Okay.
But here's the thing. You're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I say it all the time. It's one of my favorite things because it's just a Suttonism that I find so hilarious.
Yeah.
But practically, why would you let a mouse go?
And are we saying I'm the cat and I grabbed a mouse and you should let it go?
Right. Okay. Maybe that's
somebody let us know.
Okay, someone let us know. Yeah. All right, so moving on to, this is very, very sad, but we found out James Van Der Beek unfortunately passed away after a lengthy struggle with stage 3 colorectal cancer. And the reason that I feel we should talk about this is because, and you can share or not, whatever you're comfortable with, but we are both people who have had medical trauma, medical events that have changed our lives. You've talked about it a little bit on your show. I don't know if my listeners know. So, but the one thing that I'm seeing after James Van Der Beek's passing is that people are complaining about this GoFundMe, talking about how they don't understand. I could rage about this for days. They don't understand why they need the money because he had SAG-AFTRA insurance. Mm-hmm. And I just want to hop on my soapbox for a second and point out that cancer has the ability to bankrupt everyone, myself included, my husband and I probably live in fear of this all the time. And if people don't understand the nightmare that is the American health system that can lead to cancer bankrupting a family, well, then I can say, consider yourself lucky. Consider the fact that you have healthy privilege, that you have no idea the horrifying nature of being a cancer patient in this country.
Mhm.
So, do you want to share a little bit about your experience with, you had a very significant health event. Can you share your perspective on this?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I will say for myself, we have very good insurance. My husband has been with this company almost 30 years. So we have very good insurance because of that. And I'll tell you what happened to me, but just back to the GoFundMe. I had a friend whose sister, and I've known this family my whole life. This girl was one of my very best friends. Her sister was like a sister to me. Loved them. She got a type of brain cancer, and then they were doing trials on her, and she was going from wherever she lived, maybe Atlanta, to MD Anderson in Texas, and had a GoFundMe really for like the flights they were having to do, and for her husband to take time off work to go with her, and all these things.
Hotel accommodations, groceries,
all of it,
all the things that you need that a trial, it's not there, it's not going to be covered. Right.
No.
Yes.
And so I remember at the time, just like automatically clicking yes, like, I don't know. But I remember thinking like, that's weird. They seem to have a lot of money. That's weird that they would need it, but I don't care if they say they need it, then they do. Like they're not, and I just clicked it. And every time it came up, I would click it and I would give. She did pass away, and that's like heartbreaking. But what you're saying about James Van Der Beek just clicked in my mind. Like that was the first thing I thought when they sent out the GoFundMe, and they explained it at length, like and I was like, I don't even need you to explain it to me. This is a friend, I've got the money, I'll give it. But it is really interesting that the first thing you think is, well, they don't need the money. Like he was on Dawson's Creek, I'm sure. And that was like 30 years ago. And,
and he explained why he didn't get hardly any residuals from Dawson's Creek. Because back then, there was a lot of exploitation of like teens and child labor, and he did not make a lot of money from that. And I did a deep dive on this, and what I found out is that because he had to undergo all this treatment, he had to sell a lot of his Dawson's Creek memorabilia to support the treatment. But to your point, and I was a little frustrated before, so let me be clear that when it comes to these cancer treatments, so my immunotherapy I'm on that keeps me alive is $25,000 a month. Now, I have, $25,000 a month, and I've been on it for 6 years. But here's the thing. My husband has wonderful insurance through his employer. He works for the system that we have insurance through, right? Employer-based health insurance, all of that. But as we said, when you're doing a trial, you have to, there's gas money and hotel stays. And for me, I want to be clear that there are a ton of things that insurance covers, but I have to pay on. So, if I'm attending hundreds of doctor's appointments a year and there's copays every time, and then, for example, I'm getting Botox in my neck next week because I have dystonia, and that's thousands of dollars. And that's even with what insurance covers.
Right.
In addition to all that, I need things that like people who are trying to survive cancer do a lot of like acupuncture, chiropractor, different things.
Sure.
None of that is covered by insurance. My husband and I probably spend out of pocket $30,000 a year on top of health insurance for me to help my body and get the things that I need for long-term survival. And so I appreciate the conversation around it, because sometimes it's not people being assholes. They just don't know. If you've never experienced this, you don't know. And if you look at a family and you think, well, they have a lot of money or whatever, and it's like, so this is why I'm sharing the cost of things is actually pretty astronomical, even when you do have really good insurance.
Yeah. That $25,000 a month is just like shocked me. I thought you were going to say a year. That's just...
Unfortunately, I have to say it is covered.
Yeah.
It is covered by my insurance. But to think about if my husband lost his job, or if there was a gap, or, it's like, I think that in this country, the healthcare system is such a broken system that we have to have these GoFundMes. And it's like, it doesn't need to be like this.
Right.
We're getting mad at the wrong things.
Mhm.
People mad about this GoFundMe should be mad that the healthcare system does us so dirty.
Yes.
That this is how we have to live, which is ridiculous.
That's crazy. Well, I didn't mean to off track it. I just, when you said that,
I
it just really
appreciate
sparked a memory in me. It's like, I kind of thought the same thing, but I was like, okay. For me, I had in July of 2025, I had what was called takes me a second to get the word, spontaneous mesenteric hematoma, which is an abdominal aneurysm. I was just riding along in a golf cart at the beach, and just all of a sudden felt I can only explain it. It felt like I had been shot with a gun. I felt like, and I've never been shot with a gun, so I don't know. But I imagine that's what it feels like. It was so sudden and so shocking and so painful, so quick, and that I said to my husband, I was like, turn around and take me home. And because I have a history of like diverticulitis and gastric issues, he was like, she probably has to go to the bathroom, But by the time we got home, which was 4 minutes, I mean, I was so drenched in sweat that when I was trying to crawl up the stairs, which are wood, I was slipping. And I couldn't understand what I was slipping on. Like, that's how I was like, why are the stairs wet? I didn't understand it was coming off of me. Like, it was the most traumatizing thing that's ever happened to me, is all I can say. And by the time I was like on the floor, on the bathroom, because I was thinking, well, I'm going to throw up. I have to go to the bathroom. Like, I couldn't figure out, I knew it was in my stomach, but I couldn't figure out what. And I was trying to get to my phone because my friend Ingrid and my friend Matt were there visiting. So I was just thinking if I could get one of them to like tell my husband to call the ambulance. Now, the interesting thing about where we have a beach house is a place called Bald Head Island. And it is, in fact, an island that you get to by ferry. So to call an ambulance, you call the ambulance, it comes, it's public safety. They come, they are trained. But then they take you to the ferry where you have to wait for the ferry. Like, if the ferry is like coming in 5 minutes or 30, you're waiting. So then
oh my God,
you wait for the ferry. Then you get on the ferry, which is 25 minutes, and then you get to the other side, and the ambulance from the local hospital meets you. So this is all what happened to me. My thing in my stomach happened around, I think we said like 7 p.m. And by the time I got to the second hospital, because the first hospital realized what it was and that they could not treat it because it's 1 in 10 million what I had.
Right.
That they transferred me to a second hospital, which is Wilmington, North Carolina hospital, shout out. And at 5 a.m., they did a embolization. I don't know. They go up through your groin, through the arteries, up to the one, which was
like a catheter.
Yes. And they go up through the leg, up to whatever was happening here in the mesentery of the pancreas. So I've got the thing there. They put the coil in. They stopped the bleeding. I just went back to Johns Hopkins this past week. And this is sort of what I was telling you about because, of course, I went right when it happened. I got this appointment with the head of vascular surgery at Johns Hopkins. So, like, you really can't get any better. Like, you can't.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy, right? That's the guy. So I got in with the guy. He couldn't be, like, more normal and nice and didn't talk down to us or anything. It was pretty cool. Right away. So July, so I got in with him in August. And he was sort of like, here's what happened. He explained why it happened, blah, blah, blah. He was like, the thing that happened has happened. It's never going to happen again in that spot. What we want to look out for is other aneurysms that pop up, or the hematoma has to dissolve because it's like this huge mass in my stomach, blah, blah, blah. Fine. So we just go back in February this month. And we go back, and again, he sits down, and again, he's the guy, right? He runs the whole department. He's the guy that like creates things and procedures, and he's the guy. And he sits down, and he's like, oh, so how you guys doing? This man never has not ever touched me. He never examined me either time, just chatting. Here's what I saw on the CTA, blah, blah, blah. And he says, so, yeah, we'll see you back in 2 years. And I go, now, hold on a second. You're telling me that I was hours from dying. They told my husband more than once, we don't know if she's going to make it. Like, they look at my husband and say, your wife might die.
Mm-hmm.
My husband has to like tell my children, things are not great. Mm-hmm. They put a a shunt in my neck that I had for 5 days. Like, I mean, it was bad. I was in ICU for 3 days. So
Yeah,
trauma,
it was
trauma,
very serious.
trauma on top of
So
trauma.
much trauma. Yes.
And this guy, again, he's the guy. He just looks and goes, I'll see you in 2 years. And I go, no, wait. I said, so this last time you didn't see me for 6 months and that felt like too long.
Right.
And he goes, I'm telling you, the hematoma is dissolved. We thought it would take a year. It only took 9 months. So that's good. So you don't have the blood mass anymore. That's gone. And this, that, and the other, there's no further bleeding. Everything looks great. And then I had an upper endoscopy. I've had all the things, MRIs, all the things. Everything is moving like it should. But for me, I am so freaked out.
Yeah.
And my husband is so freaked out, Ingrid and Matt, who were there, who had to go through the whole thing with me. My sister, who flew in from Mississippi to be with me in the hospital for 2 days. Like, everybody's freaked out, not to mention my kids. And this guy's like, see you in 2 years. And I go, I just feel like I should come every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, everything's fine. And there was just he was happy to sit there and chat with me. He was. He wasn't a doctor that runs out of the room, because I've had those. Sure. He was happy to chat with me, but it's can you write something down for me to explain? Can you explain it to me better? And maybe that's a me thing, but it is
no, it's
trauma,
not just a you thing.
It's the trauma of you had this terrible thing happen. It happened. It's never going to happen again. But why did it happen? And how do you know it's never going to happen again?
Right. I mean, really what you're describing is PTSD, because when you have a life-threatening event and you get seen for that, one of the things that I talked about when it came to Boz on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is that sometimes doctors, because it's their job and it's just a Tuesday for them, they say things to us in clinical ways and they're like, oh no, well, you almost just died, but don't worry about it. And I'll see you in 2 years. And it's like, okay, tell me how to do that. And so I think this is another really important aspect of the healthcare system that we talk about, is that I have 28 specialists, which I know is ridiculous. And only one of them ever asked me about my mental health. One. I think that for me, it's like the system is not just harsh financially, it's really hard emotionally, because that often is one thing that doesn't get attended to. And I think, honestly, you and I could do a whole episode about medical trauma and how that impacts you. But for me, that's where my complex PTSD comes from, because I've been told I'm going to die a couple of times. And then, like just recently, doctors are like, well, the cancer is increasing, but there's nothing for you to go on. So just try not to worry about it and live your life, and we'll see what happens.
And we'll see you in 2 years. And you're like, will you?
Well, they do. They see me every 3 months. Those doctors are like, okay, we just really have to make sure she doesn't die. So they'll see me every 3. But it is still very, it's very jarring, emotionally and mentally. And so I just thank you for sharing that. But also, to your point, when I found out about what happened, because I have a lot of medical issues, I knew the severity, and I was sincerely worried for your life. I was like, thank God she's okay. Thank God she's alive. But this really could have ended very badly. And so it's like, how do you go about your life? Just not thinking about that all the time.
He also told me when we met with him the first time, he said, yeah, the author, Sebastian Junger? And I said, no. He goes, well, he wrote The Perfect Storm, and he named some other things. I was like, okay, well, I know The Perfect Storm, like the movie, but I realized it was a book. Okay. And he goes, well, he wrote a book called, In My Time of Dying, or something like that. And I go, okay. And he goes, it's about this. He had this. He had a spontaneous mesenteric hematoma. And he goes, but his situation was he was like in his house alone and kind of in a remote area, which I was too. And I had no way to like get to the phone. And I think somebody like came and found him on the floor like a half a day later or something. So I don't know, because I haven't read the book, because I don't need to read the book, because I did it. So
you lived it.
he says this, right? And he goes, yeah, it's a good book. You should read it. So see you guys in like 6 months and we're going to do a CTA scan. We'll get those arteries. We're looking at those. And yeah, if you have any questions, just get over there on the My Chart. And I'm like, your advice to me is to read a book about a guy who wrote The Perfect Storm and meanwhile, my husband bought that book and has not read it because he was like, I think I don't need to read it either. But
well, right. That could be triggering. I mean, I don't know. Listen, if you want to, great.
It's about, he basically was an atheist and he had sort of a otherworldly experience that made him rethink his spirituality. My understanding is that is what the book is about.
Oh, okay.
But I don't need to I don't know. It's weird that you're saying that because my GI doctor, I was just with him this past week. It is interesting that like I've been going to this guy, I don't know, 14 years. And yeah, you know what he said to me when I went in with the aneurysm? So I got back from the beach, made an appointment with the primary care who immediately said, go right now to the GI doctor, like in the same building, just go and sit and wait. I'm calling them. You need to talk to the GI guy first, who then said, you got to go to this guy at Hopkins. It was like one of those days. And he says, the GI guy, who again, I've known for 14 years. I said, well, what should I worry about? He goes, well, I wouldn't take any Advil. And I said, I take Advil like every day for my back. He goes, no, don't take any Advil. I go, why? He goes, it's a blood thinner. And I said, okay. And wouldn't that be good? Don't you want your blood to be thin to keep it going? What do I know? And he goes, no. I mean, I'd be concerned about, aneurysms like in your brain. He goes, because then because then you have a different outcome. All right, so I'll see you guys next week. And I'm like,
right. But Mary Payne, this is what I'm saying. It's like in the medical community, there is very little concern for how their words impact our mental health. And that is wild to me because as a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but I am mindful about the language that I use with people when it comes to life-threatening or very concerning situations. But when it comes to doctors, they say things like that and they're just like, bye. And then there is this thing in your brain that's like, oh, am I okay? And then the anxiety comes and then the PTSD comes. And so
my husband's like, should she be driving? And he's like, well, no, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure they'll test you for that. I was like,
oh, I'm sure you don't need to worry about a ticking time bomb in your brain or body. We really have spoken to how challenging it is when you have life-threatening situations, whether it's financial, emotional support, mental health support, or acknowledgement. Being a patient sucks in this country because here's the thing, I have a lot of listeners in other countries, Canada, the UK, Ireland, Australia.
Yes.
Shout out to all my international listeners who are listening to this. Like, what in the fuck is with America?
I know.
They're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you all. I know you're all right, but it's so frustrating to live here and have to manage it. So I'm just grateful for you sharing your story. I'm so grateful that you're okay. And, you can always text me and we can talk offline about how to manage that because, that's the biggest challenge that I have is managing that chronic anxiety or worry. It's like you need to be not hyper vigilant, but vigilant enough. You need to be aware, but not let it completely take over you. It is a mental tightrope that you walk. And I'm just grateful that we could, speak to that a little bit.
Thank you. Because I don't think about this. I mean, I think about it all day, but I don't think about it in the fact that like that it is a stressor for me. You know what I mean? If I have a slight stomach ache, then I'm like, well, this is it. And, like, okay, what's going to happen tomorrow? And then I tell my husband I have a stomach ache and I tell him all my symptoms in case he finds me on the floor, he'll know what to tell the medics. And that's like a hard way to be, Yeah.
Mary Payne, that's PTSD, my dear.
Oh,
that really is.
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, oh God, I'm sorry
to break it to you, lady.
You have some PTSD, honey bunny. You heard it here first from your friend.
Maybe I need a therapist. Yeah.
Well, listen, we'll talk offline about that.
Okay.
No, but in all seriousness, people listening to this who are relating if you relate, please go to www.psychologytoday.com, therapist finder. I don't believe in online platforms like BetterHelp or Grow Therapy. I think they're harmful. They're not helpful for a million reasons. I did an episode about that. But if this resonates with you, please look that up. You can search for the type of insurance you have and the symptoms that you're having and all of that to get a good match for somebody to see. But you and I will talk offline about that.
Spoiler alert, most of them don't take insurance and you have to file it yourself. I just did that this week. Yeah.
Well, that's true. Some of them now, what they've started doing is like, well, we won't take your insurance, but we'll give you a super bill so you can look at your insurance and like try to get that money back. But some of them will really take it.
For the people in my house that have therapy, I'd submit it.
Yeah. So that and again, there are barriers to treatment that I think people don't realize, like that, right? That's a huge barrier. So, but let's pivot, girl, because you know why? It reminds me of when Boz had that meeting with her doctor, and the doctor just like blurted out that, oh, your eggs are too old and maybe you should get donor eggs. And it's like, hi, you're talking to a person. Maybe you should think about how that message might be impacting them.
Yeah, I think we've learned quite a bit about Boz's doctor.
Yes. Have you seen some of the accusations? Can you talk about that a smidge?
I could just tell you what I've seen online.
Yes,
I know nothing
please.
Personally, it's all alleged. I don't know. But, people say it's irresponsible for that doctor to have taken her as a client, given her history, given her age, all this. But they said if there's a reason that Boz couldn't find a LA doctor to do that. She found one in Vegas. And they're like, the amount of doctors that would be in California, the fact that she would go to Vegas to do it shows that doctor sort of specializes in cases that maybe can't be solved, but like kind of promises a lot. Mm-hmm. Maybe like Aaron Pfeiffer's and his healing, like that. But this, people are like, if you go to this doctor's office right now, there's a big notice on the door, like the doors are closed for failure to pay rent for the space. And so that doctor's office is currently closed. This is all from online, everybody. You can look at it.
All alleged. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's right.
So I think that doctor maybe wasn't the best choice for Boz.
And I feel for Boz because it's like, I understand how people feel, but it's like, as women, I just feel like we should have autonomy over our bodies. And if that's what she really wanted, I do understand trying to search for someone, but I also do think the person she found came with some problems, shall we say.
Have you ever known a doctor to come to your house and do a sonogram?
Right. Yeah. No. Yes. I've been chronically ill since I was 17, and I've never had a doctor come to my house for any reason.
And you could just lay there with your hair looking beautiful across a pillow and have them do your sonogram and your blood in your bed.
I wish. If I could live like that, chronic illness would be a breeze, honey. It'd
be so much better. It would be so much better for you.
I know. But so, Mary Payne, I have to ask you, what do you think about Amanda Frances?
I think this week's episode was interesting because she sits down with the ladies. She has them to her home, Kyle's house. She has them to Kyle's recycled house. And they're sitting there, and basically she's like, hurt my feelings. And they were just, and Dorit said this. And they're like, and I just, I love Sutton. I'm a Sutton apologist. I'm sorry. She's Southern. I'm Southern. I love her.
Right.
I see her mother in my mother, like the whole thing. And I basically Sutton's like, okay, girl, you're on a show and this is what we're doing. I mean, she said it without saying it, right? Like,
yeah.
We're on a TV show and things are going to get brought up. And then as they're discussing it with her, all of them are saying the same thing. I mean, basically Kathy Hilton's like, pass the caviar. Suck it up, buttercup. I mean, just like literally like everyone is saying the same thing to her, trying to just be like, girl, come on.
Yeah.
And when she said, but it was my child died. And then they all just rolled their eyes, which is terrible because her child did die. But now the way that it's come about and the way that she weaponized is not even the right word because her child died.
It is weaponizing it. I'm going to say it. That is the right word. And here, because it's real what happened.
But Kyle said we know nothing about her. How were we to have known this?
Right.
You know?
But the way she did it, just to support what you're saying, is that the way she did it at this dinner, it was weaponizing it again. Because again, imagine if every time I got upset, I was like, well, I have a chronic incurable cancer.
Mm-hmm.
That is weapon, right? Like, just because I have cancer, it doesn't make me special. We all have terrible things that happen to us and cause a lot of emotional distress. She has the right to those emotions and she has the right to grieve that. But that doesn't mean everybody needs to praise her and put her on a pedestal for her whole life because that happened. Do you know what I mean?
This isn't that, right? You can't say,
right.
We're talking about how you need to sort of get a little tougher if you're going to be in this group and say on this show and then say, but my child died. You know, like that's just not, this isn't that. Like we're having a conversation about this.
That's apples and orange.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. You still, despite the fact that her child died, she still needs to be accountable for things she does wrong. Despite the fact that I have a chronic incurable cancer, I still have to acknowledge the fact when I'm wrong and that I make mistakes. It's not a get out of jail free card.
I agree with you. And I think I have someone in my life that I see not very often, but when I do, it's not, that's it. That's all I need to see that person is because of what you're saying. No matter what you say, they will say, well, you know, I had cancer. We're literally talking about who's going to go to the grocery store. Like that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You can't just bring that out because you don't want to do something or you don't like something or you know, like, and that is what she's doing. And it was funny because somebody, maybe it was Sutton, goes, well, you're a wimp. And Andy last night at Rachel Zoe and Reza were on Watch What Happens Live. And he asked Rachel Zoe, like, what do you think about her being so offended about me called a wimp?
Yeah.
And she was like, next question. I mean, she just.
No, she literally said.
Has any love for this girl.
I can't. She goes, I can't. That's exactly what Rachel Zoe said.
Oh, okay.
I can't.
I
die. I can't. I die.
Yeah.
I die. I can't. And I was like, can I just also say, like, this franchise has historically been kind of like, don't ask, don't tell. But Rachel Zoe and Boz, in my opinion, have elevated this franchise to a level that is actually enjoyable. Like the fact that Amanda is on this franchise and literally everyone cannot stand her in the group. And it seems like the fans also just feel the same way, that there's a lot of obnoxious behaviors around Amanda. But the fact that Rachel and Boz are saving this season, it also seems like Kyle is really annoyed by that. There's like this cultural shift going on in the group that I'm seeing where it's like Rachel, for example, she was like, I don't like the mean girl energy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fairy dust. Like Rachel Zoe has fairy dust, whatever she's just fabulous and amazing. She's like, I'm going to take my fairy dust and I'm going to resolve Kyle and Dorit's relationship. And at first I thought, oh, Rachel, you in danger, girl. But then she did it. She really did it. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting how Rachel taking these two people out of that dynamic changes the dynamic. You know what I mean?
It's like you have no choice. It's only the three of us here. And they're all three actually going through the same thing with the divorce. Kyle's just happens to be more amicable, but it doesn't mean it was always that way. It was terrible at the beginning. She hated Mo. He would walk in the room and she'd be like, you know, like, so she knows what Dorit is feeling. Kyle does, but she's forgotten that because she's too close to the situation. And the fact that like Mo goes to have a dinner or a drink with Dorit or whatever, and then immediately calls and tells Kyle every single thing that it's never gonna, no.
Yeah.
Kyle needs to tell Mo, tell me nothing. Just tell me nothing. You just be friends with PK. I'll be friends with Dorit and tell me nothing. Like, I don't want to know the other side of it. It's better that way.
I just feel like that sit down was so uncomfortable between Mo and Dorit. And here's what I'm confused about.
I felt like he was being an asshole.
Well, because he kind of was. I mean, Mo had his mind made up
Yes.
And Dorit came in thinking she was going to change Mo's mind, and he had his mind already made up. And I think
But
that
he wouldn't listen. He wouldn't even listen. He was just like, well, I've seen the text messages. She's like, let me just pull up my phone and I'll show you all the text messages, because you can go through and delete certain text messages. You
Of
can.
course.
And then leave the rest of them so it looks like something else. She's like, I know what he's doing. And Mo's just like, no. I don't know. It was just like, I hated it. Because I don't hate Mo. I think he's kind of a good comic relief. And I think I like to kind of make fun of him and whatnot. Saw him when I was in LA last time at Craig's with a blonde girl going to dinner.
Really? Oh.
Ingrid's like, there's Mo. I was like, what? Pretend to take a picture of me.
Right. Get him in the background.
Not as tall as you would think. And I just hated that he was, and maybe he was like, PK's going to see this. I need to make sure my guy knows I'm standing up for him. I just hated it. And I'm not like a giant Dorit fan. I just felt like he didn't even give her a fair shake in the conversation.
Right. And to that I say he didn't. He didn't give her a fair shake. He had his mind made up because he is friends with PK, and he thinks that, oh, well, I've seen these text messages. So it's like he was so focused on wanting Dorit to see another point of view, but he wasn't willing to see her point of view either, which I didn't care for. And I also think that it's wild, and this is one thing I definitely wanted to touch base with you about because you have experience in addiction and recovery with your husband, is that Dorit said, well, I want PK to be clear-headed, and said that he had started drinking again.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. And Mo immediately came back and he said, well, yeah, but he's not like drinking every day or drinking too much. And I facepalmed so hard because the danger of that statement is just so ridiculous. It's like PK is a grown man. Why is Mauricio his PR person, his apologist? Like, what is going on?
And he doesn't know how much he's drinking. Is he with him 24/7? Are they roommates? He doesn't know.
Also, hello, do people who struggle with addiction hide their drinking all the time? Like, Mo, please have several seats. So yeah, what were your thoughts about that?
Well, you and I talked quite a bit about addiction on my show. And if people don't know me, my husband is 11 years sober. He's an addict. He's an alcoholic. He's 11 years sober. He's in recovery. He's killing it. We're so proud of him. So I can only speak from my experience. And my brother-in-law, I think, is 14 years sober. My sister's very, very active in Al-Anon. So I can speak from all those experiences. And what I can tell you is, just like we talked about on my show with Chrissy Teigen coming out and saying, like, she made a big announcement. I'm an alcoholic and I don't drink anymore. And then she said, maybe I wasn't. So I'm going to have a glass of wine here. And then she explained, like, and what happens is you have a glass of wine here, and then it's 5 o'clock and you have a glass of wine, and then it's lunch, who cares? And then you're drinking all day. She explained it very well. I think the slippery slope of, if you're an addict, you're an addict, just like Karen Huger. If you're an addict,
right,
20 years ago, you're still an addict now. And I think with PK coming out so strongly with, I'm an alcoholic. Now, I didn't appreciate Dorit going around going, like, he's a raging alcoholic. I mean,
that was bullshit. Yeah,
just say, PK's admitted he has a problem with alcohol, and then leave it. You don't need to tell everybody, well, he's a raging alcoholic. Don't need to say that. So we get it,
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it was revealed that he's drinking again, I think plays into, he doesn't want to get the kids as much, blah, 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 because number one, maybe he can't drink as much as he wants to. Number two, he can't go out and party with Mo on the weekends or whatever, because now he's drinking again. So he's not, I'm going to go home at 10 because I'm picking up the kids or whatever. And for her to say on camera, I need him to be more clear-headed, was the opening without her saying he's drinking again. She could be like, oh, I don't know. He always seems tired. You could take that for whatever it means. But Mo took the bait. He said, because he's drinking again.
I was like, oh, Mo, you stepped right in it, buddy boy.
And by the way, all of this just helps her in her negotiations with everything she's, with the kids and everything. I don't think there's any money there to be had. But I think it only helps her with, he needs to, just like Brittany had to do with Jax, he has to prove he's sober in order to be around the child. you know?
Right. And I think no matter how you feel about Dorit or PK, the two people in this who matter the most are those children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if someone is struggling with addiction and they are engaging in that addictive behavior, there should be questions about children being around that person.
Right.
Now, I'm not PK's therapist. I have no idea what's going on. I'm just speaking as someone who in these situations, you need to, no parent is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, but that's different than potentially having children be in an unsafe situation if a parent is not, as Dorit said, clear-headed, under the influence, struggling with an addiction, right? Like you can be struggling with an addiction and be a beautiful parent. They say in the program, like when you're in active addiction, like that is your lover. That's your best friend. That's your number one. You can't be a good anything, really, right? If you're in active addiction. It's hard to be a good friend, mother, child, wife, right? Husband. It's hard to be these things if that drug of choice is leading you. So I just think that can't get lost in all this.
My husband said to me after he got sober, and then we had a couple of years where I was like, why are you still mad at me? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he explained, it was probably 2 years after he got sober. He said, the reason I resented you is because you made me give up the thing that I loved most in the world, which was alcohol. My first love, alcohol. You made me give it up. Now, when he's saying it, he's saying he knows it's ridiculous, but he was explaining to me how he felt for those 2 years. He really blamed me when actually all of his actions got him there, but he didn't want to see that, right?
Right.
So all the therapy and things that he's done, of course, he realizes now, like, there's no reason to be mad at me. I actually saved his life. But
that's the way his brain thought about it, that is part of the addictive thinking. This is the love of my life, not my wife.
No.
Right. And
which I was shocked to hear that. I was like, wait, what?
You're like, what the hell?
Yeah. I'd never heard that phrase before. Now, since I've heard it and it resonates more since he said that to me, and you just said it, which is the whatever is the drug of choice. What the drug is, the drug is the drug. It doesn't matter if it's alcohol or gambling. It doesn't matter. Whatever is the thing you're addicted to, that takes such the star in your life that he was like, yeah, you don't care about your wife. You don't care about your kids. You don't care about your job. If you drink and drive with your kids, who cares? I'm getting what I want, and if you don't have an addictive brain, it's wild to think that anybody could think that way.
Right. Right. And that is such a good point because it's people who don't have an understanding of addiction. They haven't experienced it personally, professionally, whatever. There is such a lack of understanding about that, which is why I'm very passionate about educating about it. But now, so with the last few minutes that we have, what I'd like to do maybe is pivot to Karen Huger. She had another interview with Sherri Shepard, who, by the way, Sherri Shepard's interview was fantastic.
Agree.
I think Sherri asked amazing questions. She held Karen accountable in ways that maybe Andy struggled to do. But she was kind, she was empathetic, and it was really, really great. So I sent you a clip yesterday. It was about 12 minutes. It's on YouTube for those interested in checking it out.
Go watch it. Yeah, go.
I want to get your thoughts on this because for me, I was like, okay, I saw some growth from her interview with Andy, but there were still so many red flags for me in terms of concern of like her not giving up that humility, insisting that a couple things that she said, she was like, well, my co-stars, they need to pay me if they're using me for a storyline or whatever. And I was like, girl, bye. And then Sherri pushed back. Karen was like, well, something about God and how, she now has this higher power, which is, beautiful. But Sherri pushed back about, well, how didn't that occur to you like each of the 4 times before you got in the car? And Karen,
well, let's talk about that.
Well,
let's talk about that. Listen, if it was a drinking game, we'd all be drunk. The amount of times she said, let's talk about that. Well, let's talk about that. Every time Sherri would ask a question, she'd say, let's talk about that. It's as if she's stalling for time to come up with an answer. So that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know, like, from somebody who studies this kind of thing, when somebody constantly says back to you, well, let's talk about that. What does that mean? Are they trying to put it back on you? Are they trying to say that was a stupid question? Because she constantly said it to Sherri.
She did. And she did say it to Andy, too, quite a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So my perception as, a therapist who's kind of trained in assessment, but also as a fan who's watched since day one, like I love Potomac. It's one of my favorite franchises. I think that's Karen's way to act as if she's engaging in the conversation, but what it really is it puts up this barrier of her trying to shift and take control over the narrative, like over the question. And she'll be like, okay, well, I'm now going to take this and I'm telling you, I'm willing to talk about this. So let's talk, right? Like,
if you had a patient that did that to you and you asked questions, would you be like, we are talking about it? Do you know, what would you, is that what you would think the person was trying to shift it so that they're in control?
Well, and it depends on the situation. But what if this was a client of mine, I would say, hey, I noticed that when I ask questions or when we do talk about these things, you say the phrase, let's talk about it quite frequently. I'm not sure if you're aware of that because sometimes people say things consistently that they aren't aware of. It can be almost subconscious. Or it can kind of be like a nervous tick if they are struggling with anxiety or they are buying time to think about something or whatever. But I would address it and say, hey, what's this about? Because for me, I can guesstimate all day long what it's about. But I think there's a lot of worthwhile information and conversation about why do you do this? What is this about for Karen? But my guess would be it is about either stalling, trying to act like she's engaging in ownership, but she's really not. Like there's something about it that feels off to me.
I agree. And the whole, I did like that she said higher power because she never said that with Andy. And that's a big AA phrase. She did say the word addict, but again, she's not admitting to having a drinking problem. And like you said on my show, you feel that she thinks somehow being on pills is a better addiction than drinking. One is more classy than the other. Being on pills is more classy than being an alcoholic. Like, what is it about her that will only take half responsibility? And again, like you and I were talking on my show, she won't name what pills she's on. She wouldn't, you were explaining it's probably benzos. She won't even say it's benzos, it's opioids. She won't say it's this. She just says it's pills. Well, that could be Advil. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, everything is a drug. If I'm being honest, coffee, Tylenol, Advil, everything's a drug.
So the fact that she says, I can't name it because I'll get sued. Well, you're not saying, oh, it is actually lorazepam made by Eli Lilly or whatever. She wasn't, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's weird the way that she did it on that show and the way she did it on this show. She just like, well, let's talk about it. And then talks around it. Well, let's talk about it and talks around it.
And right. So that's what leads me to believe that the let's talk about it is a control. It's a kind of manipulative tactic to take the reins back.
Yes.
Because in reality, all people who struggle with addiction, they have a lot of issues with like control and surrender. Like the one thing you really have to do in recovery is surrender in a lot of different ways. And that is the one thing I see Karen struggling to do. Now, she did say all the right words in terms of like drinking. Let me be clear. That's her other phrase. Let me be clear. Drinking and driving is wrong. It was, I forget the words that she used, but she's like, I was dead wrong for that.
So many claps. Drinking and driving is wrong. Oh, yes, Karen, you're so smart. When she would say things like, let me be clear, and look at the audience and say, drinking and driving is wrong, and everybody would clap.
And that's the other thing that really was a red flag for me is that she wasn't talking to Sherri. She was talking to the audience.
She would say, let me tell you something, Sherri.
Right.
And that's a good question. So let me be clear. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
And then she would explain, like, let me be clear. It wasn't 4 times. And let me be clear. When Sherri asked her, which is exactly what you said to me, I think that you said this to me, how could somebody who just got sober, got a nose job, which she did, went to prison, and then now she's able to lead NA and AA classes of people that have probably been in that jail 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Mhm.
And now she's able to lead the classes when she probably didn't even complete a 90-day program.
Mhm.
So she addressed that. Let me be clear. Let's talk about that, Sherri. It's because nobody can teach what I've learned because I have this experience. So I was able to teach the young women about what I have learned. That does not make you a drug and alcohol expert, lady.
No, and in fact, the language gives it away too. There was too much I. When someone's in recovery,
a lot.
in recovery, there's a lot of we. There's a lot of, there's not person-centered language. It's about the group. It's about something greater than you, right? These are all little things that you learn
That's a great point. That's a
to pick
great
up.
point. She did do that a lot.
Yeah, she did that a lot. I know.
Frustration.
Yeah, and listen, we could talk about this all damn day. Like you said,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to have longer podcasts in the future. But
Yes.
for today, we're going to wrap it up. But I just appreciate your perspective. I'm so grateful that you're okay, that you're healthy,
Thank
that you're
you.
here. And I just thank you for also sharing your experience with all of this. Because I think the more that we talk about this stuff, it's less about judging Karen and more just about kind of helping to educate people and spread the word and, all
Yes.
that stuff. So
Yeah.
please, Mary Payne, let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on.
I have a podcast. It's called Pink Shade. I do reality show recaps. I cover all the 90-day franchise, whatever is 90-day going on. I've got it. Love During Lockup is currently on. We call that Mugshot Monday. If we don't have a Love During Lockup, we find another prisoner show to talk about to keep the theme. Thursdays, I talk about pop culture and Bravo. I had Melissa on this past week. And then on the weekends on subscription services, I'm covering Love is Blind. We're doing a rewatch of Welcome to Plathville. And Love is Blind, you guys, I just got to tell you, don't sleep on it. It's on Netflix. It's a great new season in Ohio. When I tell you, I just watched the end of episode 8 because we get the screeners and my mouth was on the floor. It seems like a slow burn because it seems like all these people look alike and all the guys have beards, like everybody looks alike. But once you start to differentiate who they are, it's some really compelling stories. And I don't always say that about Love is Blind, but it's a really good season. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Well,
and so Pink Shade Pod.
Yeah, check her out because I do love that you do cover those TLC shows. People are always literally begging me to cover those, but I feel like it's just there's too much to catch up on.
I don't know what kind of therapizing you could do to those people. I don't know. I don't know if you could help them.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I could certainly talk about concepts.
Yes, for sure.
So for everyone listening, please go ahead, check her out, Pink Shade Podcast. Give her a follow on Instagram at Pink Shade, right?
Pod.
It's just
yeah.
at Pink Shade Pod. Of course, check your girl out, You're a Best Therapist on Instagram. Check out my Patreon where it is on and poppin'. Patreon.com/You're a Best Therapist. So for today, sending love to you and yours, and ta-ta for now. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT Podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT Podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.